Hey there, 302. I'm Jackie Ferris. This week we are at the Old Swedes Church and we go back 320 years and take a look at all of the history here and all of the people who made history who are buried here. Stick around, the 302 is headed your way. Hey 302, I'm Jackie Ferris. We are at the Old Swedes Church that's celebrating 320 years of existence, but the actual property goes much farther back than that. I'm joined now by Rebecca Wilson. She is the executive director to talk a little bit about this property. Rebecca, let's talk about the burial ground. It came first, right?
Yes, it was founded in 1638-39 with the first death of the first Swedes that landed here in March of 1638 and started the settlement along the Christina River that is today Wilmington, Delaware. These burial grounds date all the way up into today. We're still burying not full bodies, just cremated remains. But a lot of families have been here for a long time and they still want to be here. Or there's people who have history to this site, as well as parishioners who would like to be in these hallowed grounds of this first church and burial ground in the state of Delaware. So we have a variety of people who are buried here, and when you look around, you'll see people like Anna Brinko. Her father was a judge. She actually has her picture painted, and she is over in Newcastle in one of the properties there. You'll also see, and I'll point them out as we get closer, there are different imagery on different gravestones, and they all mean something different. This is an angel over here. It is in deference to the individual. It often means that they are praying as well as it's someone very special. Normally you see angels on special individuals to their family or youngish people.
So some of these headstones are from the 1700s. How do you keep them, how do you preserve them?
Well, one of the main things for preservation is trying to keep them clean. There's a lot of damage to these stones due to the fact of the materials they were made from. They don't stand up well to the acid rains we have today, and the materials are just literally melting away. And if you look around, you'll see things that look black, and that is actually from the acid pollution. So we try to clean these stones as often as we can. However, it takes a lot of manpower because they're hand cleaned. And
how do you clean them?
We clean them with a solution called D2. It is biodegradable and it takes everything off. So it's water and D2 and a mixture and a little elbow grease. But depending on the stone, depends on how much elbow grease. And then the rest of the work is done by the sun, because the sun then bleaches it out. It's not a Clorox formula or anything like that. It is all mild and it does not hurt the environment at all.
Now, I'm looking ahead and I see that you've got some tree damage from
the
storm, so you have to deal with that as well.
We have that all the time, just even the older trees dropping limbs, storm damage bringing trees down, just maintaining them as they age and they fall. We have issues with sinkholes on occasion. Normally it's when the river gets real high. There are little streams that run under all this ground. Plus, in many of these areas, you might not imagine it, but there are brick vaults under this ground, and they are 100 to 200 years old, and some go back as far as the 1700s. And as that mortar begins to fail and the ground begins to shift, snow, believe it or not, 24 inches of snow does really terrible damage on these grounds from the weight of it. We also have groundhogs to deal with. We have the trees, we have water, all those types of things, as well as the train that goes by, shaking everything to deal with on a daily basis.
So it seems like you guys really have your hands full with, keeping, preserving the burial grounds. What is it that you want people to know about this site. It's the first site for the entire area here.
Yes, it is. It's all that remains of those very early years here in Delaware when the state was founded. And they need to know how important it was, because a number of people who are buried here, they go from the very famous in Delaware history to the everyday person. We actually have graves here of the Forrest family. He came over here and worked in the Hagley Mills and then made his money and opened his own construction company and firms and became a very wealthy philanthropist as time went on. So we have stories like that, and we like to tell those stories so people understand that it's not just the very wealthy who were here or the U.S. Senator or the ambassador that is buried here, but it's other individuals who've come alive, and that this site really talks about what Delaware is and the immigrants that began this place.
So it's where what Delaware is.
It's what Delaware is, where it came from, where it began. The fort was probably not too far from here. It states that in some early Swedish records that the burial grounds were started on the highest piece of land. So it's not going to be miles from the fort. They're living in the fort early on. They're going to put it as close to they can be without it being overrun with water and that type of thing.
It's just amazing to hear you talk about all this history, and I'm really excited. Can we go check out the church?
Certainly.
All righty, we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Jerry with the Candlelight Theater, and I found the spotlight on the 302.
Welcome back. Rebecca and I have come inside to the church, and it's gorgeous inside. And this church is 320 years old. It's hard to believe.
Yes, we just celebrated the anniversary in June. They broke ground in May of 1698, and it was completed in late May, early June, and consecrated on June 4th, 1699. And its original name as consecrated is Holy Trinity, but since the mid-1700s, it's been known as Old Swedes, because it started out being the church for the Swedish community, and the Swedes were the first people who landed and settled the community. So though it was built in the 1690s under English rule, it was built by the Swedes for their worship services, and it was a Swedish Lutheran church. Today, it's an Episcopal church. As you look around, you can see the pulpit. It's one of the oldest pulpits in the country, and it is original. It was put in here in 1698 as they began the interior work on the building. We have a variety of interesting little things that took place in this church from when they first had their consecration. There were over 300 people that attended it. There, you can imagine it was stacked to the gills in here because it didn't have the gallery. That was not added until the 1770s. Out on the doors, we have this wonderful graffiti that people started carving in the doors in 1711. The beautiful stained glass windows that you see behind us were actually the third set of windows that were in this building. They started with casements, moved to sashes, and then went to the stained glass windows. A lot of the money for the preservation of this building, believe it or not, it was really run down by 1841, and the pews were falling apart. Her name was Henrietta Amann, and she left $841 to this church for its preservation. It had gone through a lot of hard times and things were falling apart. However, she said if they hadn't spent the money in 1 year, it went to her family. So guess what? They spent the money in 1 year. They didn't want to lose it. It was at that time that they began to think of more ways to fund money for preservation, and that's when they came up with taking the clear glass windows out and putting in the stained glass windows. As you look around the building, you'll see that you'll recognize a lot of Delaware names. We have the Forrest family, the Breck family from the Breck Mills, the Byard family. They started here in this state in the 1790s and go all the way up to today. We have the Vanderveers as well. And we also have at the Byard window, it is the only Louis Comfort Tiffany window in this building. It was when he first started putting in commissions for churches and using opalescent glass. Over the years, it takes a lot to keep this building up. 320 years it's sat here, and 320 years it's done services, which happen on Sundays at 9:30. Just last year, we put on a new roof to the tune of $265,000. It's a cedar shake roof, and if you don't have smell-o-vision, but if you were here, you would smell the cedar still in this building today. It was just so amazing watching them walk on top of the roof and put in these hand-cut shingles, because they can't just go down to Home Depot and buy them. We had to go to British Columbia and have them handmade to make them fit to the building, because today we're part of the First State National Historic Park, which is Delaware's first national park, and we're also a national landmark, which happened in 1963, and believe it or not, Lyndon Baines Johnson came here to deliver the paperwork himself for that event.
That's amazing. Now I know that you have some artifacts.
Yes, we did an archaeology dig a few years ago around the perimeter of the church, because we have a little bit of a drainage problem here. And we found a number of things that are most interesting. In the south porch, which is on the one of the sets of main doors, we found ceramics, and from the 1700s, and we found pieces of pipe spends. We also found a lot of, throughout the whole area in the 4 places that we dug, we found a lot of Native American artifacts. Mostly they're lithics, and lithics are today thought of as arrowheads and those types of things. Hope you will come here one day and see all the information that we have to tell you and look at our artifacts.
Excellent. This truly is a magnificent historic site that a lot of people should come and visit. And we're going to find out more in just a little bit. We'll be right back.
I'm Stephania from Sazi over Hobart, and we find the best food from the 302.
Welcome back. We are at the Hendrickson house that's been here since 1722. We've got Rebecca back with us, and Jane, who is a tour guide. We're going to talk to her in just a little bit. But first, Rebecca, tell us a little bit about 1722. That's a lot of history for this house.
Yes, it is. The house was actually built in 1722 in what is today Eddystone, Pennsylvania, by Andrew Hendrickson and his second wife, Catherine. It was probably built about the time Andrew was dying, and Catherine wanted a better house than a log cabin. So when you look around this room, it might not look very large, but it actually was quite large, and it was 2 stories at that time for a farmhouse out along the Delaware River. In 1958, this house was taken apart on its site in Eddystone and moved stone by stone to this site and rebuilt in 1961 and 62. As you can see, they did a really wonderful job. They had to redo the beams, they redid the fireplace, they put in new floors because the house had been sitting empty for over 30-some years, and animals started to move into it. It was on that site, was owned by the Hendrickson family, who actually lost the property. Hendrickson, who owned it, was kind of broke at the time. There were many other Hendricksons in the area that were related to him, but no one came forward to help him out. So I have a feeling he lost it due to gambling, or else all the money he put in to the militia for the Revolutionary War, because he lost it shortly after the Revolutionary War. And then he sold it, and then he lived here as a tenant for 10 years until his death, when he then died a pauper.
That's amazing. Now, what was it like, Jane, to live in a house like this?
Well, as Rebecca said, it is a pretty luxurious house for 1722. And Catherine did build this with her son John. But in 1722, you didn't have a lot of ready-made products, farmers markets, and you were pretty much on your own to kill, grow, ferment, dry, smoke any food. And you had to really prepare for that 6-week one. And basically that's winter. They coined that term, 6-week one, as the winter time. And so in Delaware, the Delawareans in colonial times, they ate a lot of pork. They smoked a lot of the meat. They also grew flax, and this farm also did a lot of weaving with wool, and they definitely grew flax. Now kids, that was their job to harvest the flax, and it was a very tricky plant to grow, and it was extremely labor intensive to make it into clothing. So kids would work the fields and dry the flax. They would, what we call, break it through a break, and then they would comb it through a hexel. And then little girls as young as 4 years old would learn to spin. And so when wintertime came, when there was nothing else to do, these little girls would be spinning and make spools of thread. They could make fabric, they made sheets, they made their clothing, they made fishing line, ropes. It was a very, very versatile fabric. Could last 100 years, and it's said that 1/4 acre made a shirt.
Wow.
1/3 acre made a man's outfit. And girls and boys really were treated like little adults. In this household, the father probably had a chair, and everybody else had a stool or a bench to sit on. They had many, many rules for dinner. And so if kids come here, they can learn about all the different rules that kids had at school and at church, at home, at the dinner table. There were lots and lots of rules. You know, it was a hard life.
I can imagine.
But they knew what they were doing. I mean, if we were to be transported back to that time, I don't think we could survive. But the people in 1722 and later, they didn't know any better. So that's how they lived.
Excellent. Now, you guys have done an amazing job at preserving and really showcasing what life was like at the time. Talk to me a little bit about when someone comes to the Hendrickson house, what can they see, what can they do?
Well, when they come to the Hendrickson house, they can have a guided tour by someone such as Jane or some of our other staff. They will actually get to feel and hold different things. We have different activities for children to do. And we just try to transport them back to what it was like living then and get them to understand that this was not a poor man's house. Andrew was very wealthy, and he owned 181 acres fronting the Delaware River, and he had a number of pieces of furniture. She said one chair. Well, he had 4. And he had tables, and he had chests, and he actually had 2 beds with bed hangings. And the most expensive thing you could own at that time was your land, and the second was your bed hangings and your linens, because they were all imported.
And I would add to that in the will, we have the original will on the wall here, and in the will it states all the children got a set of sheets, a feather bed, bolster, and some animals and things. So that does go along with what Rebecca said about things were important, they had value. And so those beds, everybody got a bed, a feather bed.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's really impressive, all the history that you guys have, taken in and all the preservation that you have done. Any organization needs several things in order to thrive. Besides passion, one is volunteers, the others might be donations. Somebody sees this, they want to get involved, they want to give you guys money. Where do they go? What do they do?
They can call us at our phone number, 652-5629. That's area code 302, like the show. Or they can go to our website at www.oldswedes.org, and they can ask for me, Rebecca Wilson.
Excellent. Rebecca, Jane, thank you very much for joining us. And we'll be right back. That'll do it for this episode of the 302. For more information on the Old Swedes Church, you can go to oldswedes.org. We leave you now with some more historic sites from here, right on the property. I'm Jackie Ferris. Until next time, we'll see you on the 302.